everyone, thank you so much for being here. My name's Faye and I run Faye Wild Photography and Faye Wild Education. Last week I shared sneak peeks from an interview that I did with Mia Sylvia, who is an incredible fabric artist and powerhouse in the wedding industry. This was for my course Align. Cohort 2 will be opening soon, so I'm basically just sharing sneak peeks from Cohort 1 and how impactful it has been for the workshoppers to basically give you a little bit of a sneak peek into what you could get if you were to join the next cohort. The course is broken down into 3 modules. The first one is all about finding your why. It's like a holistic deep dive into everything that you want your business to feel like, to be about. Step 2 is all about curation. So as photographers or any other wedding supplier, this is potentially the most important thing that we could do. Learning to curate a portfolio that represents our brand values, everything that we want our business to be about. And it's not as easy as you might think. It's not as simple as just picking pretty visuals or pretty pictures of couples. In an age where we are consuming so much content, we're sat on our phone. Most people have got screen time of 2, 3, 4 hours plus every day. Yet, if we really think about how much content we're consuming, we're only staying on one thing for seconds. Like, it's harder than ever to get somebody to stick with you rather than just scrolling on to the next best thing. Module 2 is really important because it's all about curating that content that is going to get people to stick around, that is going to get people to not just watch what you're providing, but also engage with it too, inquire with you, talk about working with you, and ultimately work that's going to get someone to work with you over somebody else that they're considering. So the course is structured for maximum flexibility. I completely understand that people have got different things going on, but you still want to work on your business, even if you've got a part-time job, even if you've got kids, even if you've got limited resources because you've got all these hours, but you're not generating the bookings to pay for a designer or style shoots or workshops or anything like that. The course has been built with people in mind that have got obstacles and pain points, but that still want their businesses to thrive. Alongside the workbooks that you get, so there's 3 modules and each module has a workbook. Alongside these workbooks, there's a WhatsApp group where you can ask as much or as little as you need. At the end of each module, there is a Zoom and we have special guests for the Zoom. The Zoom guests have been picked especially because they thrive or excel in a specific area, the area that has been covered that week in the workbooks. And for module 2, it's all about curation. And honestly, there's very few people that do it better than Verity from the Fior Collective. Verity has only been in weddings for a really short time, but she has already launched her business into massive heights. She's doing incredibly well. She's working with really, really big budgets all around Europe. Not that that's the only thing that's important. Let me just make that very clear. It's attracting not just high budget weddings, but weddings that feel aligned with her, weddings that are filling up her cup, weddings that are making her excited to go to work, with clients that she feels aligned with, clients that she gels with, clients that she can't wait to work with because they just are singing from the same hymn sheet and everything's easy breezy. So I'm going to share some sneak peeks from the Zoom with Verity. These are just sneak peeks. The Zooms normally last around 2 hours. First half, like I said before, is like a catch up. We'll go over the topics from the week. I'll ask leading questions, so they're led by me. Compartmentalise everything that we've covered that week and make sure that we're going into the new module feeling like we're on top of everything. After conversation with Verity, there's an opportunity for guests to ask her anything. So in this context, it was amazing for the guests because they got to speak to a planner who's out there absolutely thriving, and the feedback from this was just incredible. People were obsessed. Like, literally after the Zoom, both Mia the week prior and this one with Verity, the workshoppers were absolutely obsessed. They were so happy with all the content that they consumed on the call, and yeah, it was really, really positive. Without further ado, here are some sneak peeks from my chat with Verity. I hope that you get a lot of value out of this. So everyone, this is Verity. We're normally quite chaotic and stupid when we're together, so hopefully we're going to be able to pretend that we are professional in this environment. But yeah, so this is Verity from the Fior Collective. She's an absolutely incredible planner. We met for the first time nearly 2 years ago, and it was love at first sight, and we've worked together quite a few times since on the Faye Wild workshops, but also some smaller creative projects as well. Can you tell everybody more about you, how long you've been doing it, how you got into it?
Yeah. So I wedding planner and designer, whatever, everything to make your wedding dreams a reality. I started probably it feels longer, but really I only launched this about 2 years ago. So I met Faye really early on in the building of the Fior Collective. But I come from a theatre background, so I've kind of I built the business still whilst being very much in the theatre world, which I think is why I have a strong kind of storytelling focus and enjoy like, yeah, just exploring people's relationships. And I love like characters and making sense of people's love stories. And that's kind of like how I push my business, really, is that kind of lens. But I've sort of stopped that. I dip my toe into that world now and again, but I'm very much kind of like, yeah, very focused on being wedding planner extraordinaire now.
Yeah, you're very good at, like, every now and again she'll put on her close friends like just ballads of her singing, which are always, it stops the scroll.
When I've got like 5 minutes off and I'm like, oh, I just want to sing. And then I like put on a karaoke track and then I record it and I'm like, what am I doing?
So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about was curation has been the topic of module 2. And so what do you think about when you are curating your own Instagram grid?
I guess there's kind of like a few things to consider. So there's definitely aesthetics, how it looks on the page, and just making it visually impactful. But there's also your business needs, and I guess for me, storytelling, how your grid is creating a picture of who you are and what you offer. So I use Instagram as kind of like a bit as a shop front, which I'm sure like everyone does really. More of a static portfolio. I don't tend to add like loads of content all the time. Like I try to keep it minimal, still kind of going with the Instagram rules of pushing as much out there as possible, but trying to keep it as static as possible. But I still think there's room for storytelling. So I consider like, yeah, what's visually striking, looks good to the eye, what images best represent me as a brand, or yeah, the brand as a whole, and also what images also pull people in and allow, I guess, people to personal interpretation of the photos. Everyone is going to look at an image differently and get something different from an image, and that is the beauty of it. So it's creating that world which feels really, really, you can interpret whatever you want from it. So I guess for me, I always try and find those photos that will make people think, oh, why has she posted that one? Or like, what can I take from this image that makes me understand the brand more and like what you're trying to get across. Like Instagram, in my opinion, is like a window into the like soul of the brand in a way. I guess like it's slightly different from a website where it feels very informative and slightly more formal. Like Instagram is like the soul. You're looking into the eyes of the brand, and so it's important to show that soul in what you're putting out. And ultimately, the imagery is just chosen needs to be beautiful on the page, but also like evoke feelings for people visiting. So that's what I try
Just
and
put it on and you'll see it. Yeah, perfect. So it's really interesting because one of the activities that we did last week was I gave everybody 2 images and then they had to kind of pick between them. And I was trying to get them to really think about the power of things that you do really well, like negative space, not posting walking up and down shots of the couple that everybody's seen 100 times before, alternating things like details, guests, and the couple. And it's interesting because looking at your grid, it's very rare that you actually share a photo of a couple looking at the camera. You tend to post a lot more negative space, standalone things, details, like you've got one just of some lamps coming out of the wall. So have you got like go-tos that you're looking for when a supplier sends you a gallery? Like what part of the day are you going to straight away?
I mean, obviously, I'm very drawn to the detail shots, but I also love looking at the shots that just feel like they're so random, like really, really as if they've come out of nowhere. So I'll always look for things that just instantly feel interesting and out of the ordinary. I slightly switch off when I see a couple walk straight on, unless it's like meant to be, it's styled that way. And I think especially on an Instagram grid, when you see a couple of photo couple and then another couple same position, another couple same position, perhaps looking in a different way, it feels like there's not been much thought that's gone into that in terms of what are you trying to say, that you can take a wonderful picture of a couple. I mean, that is fantastic, but I feel like the clients that you probably want to work with also they're putting lots of detail into their wedding, lots of money.
Spending 25 grand on flowers and they don't see any flowers apart from the bouquet on your grid, they're not booking you. Or if they're spending, I don't know, 6 grand on artisan stationery that they've had shipped from the US, they're not going to book you if they've got no stationery photos on your grid. So I guess, and that's something that comes up in mentoring a lot. That's normally the number one thing and the number one issue with Instagram is we're competing with hundreds of other photographers 95% of them are just posting pictures of couples walking up and down. So if you're wanting to put yourself in front of these other people, your grid needs to stand out. And
Mm.
that's not to say that you're not going to have these epic couple photos in your portfolio like you 100% are.
Yeah.
But to draw them in to actually get to that inquiry stage, you're going to have to stand out, and sharing couple photos is not the way to do that.
Yeah.
We're wedding photographers, we know that we can do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And for instance, like from a full gallery from a wedding, I picked out one of the bride walking, and you can see her shoes, the one on the grass, you can see the tip of her shoe. And yeah, it's not like, you've seen that image before, but for as a planner, I thought, well, what are the sort of couples I want to work with? They're so into their shoes. Like, I want them to be into their shoes. I want them to care that there is a photo of their foot in the gallery, and they recognize that that is a cool shot. So for me, putting that above, okay, well, this was a wedding I did, that was important for me. So those choices I feel like are vital in when curating your grid.
So we've obviously spoken about Instagram, and Instagram, the thing is about getting people to stop scrolling. So thinking outside of the box, curating things to put on there that you've not seen 100 times before. Is that approach different when you come to things like your website?
Good question. No, it's not too dissimilar, I would say. Although my website is much more static, I don't update it as much, and it feels like it's just a very, well, that's it. I just don't update it as much. It's still a space that feels super, super personal and curated. So everything that's on there, I feel like spells out who the Fior Collective is, and the tone of voice is like super authentic to me and my branding. So I feel like on my website, I also have taken that over and really thought about the tone of voice and who I want to connect with. And actually, straight off the bat, when I was first booking like clients initially, that was one of the comments they made, was like, we love how you were expressing yourself through words on your website. So I think it's important. And like that quote there at the top is from my own wedding, and that's what I said to my husband. And that's a great like starting point, like a conversation. So that's the first thing people are going to read, hopefully, on there. And
I love that, because it's not, hi, I'm Verity and I create beautiful weddings and you can work with me and this is how much I charge, and not anything's about the price. You're evoking a feeling, and something that we've been talking about a lot over the last 2 weeks is feelings are the things that are going to convert. So trying to get more emotion into your portfolio, trying to do things that are a bit different. Like, to give an example, I did a wedding fair last year. I got so much shit for it from the other photographer that was there. It was like, you've not got any photos. My stand at this wedding fair was just me with this massive floral installation and a sign that said Feywild Photography with a QR code. But the flowers stopped so many more people than like him with his two MacBooks and all this stuff. And I'm not here to say that that's not right, and like everybody approaches wedding fairs differently, but I stopped people. They were so intrigued by the way that I was
the
doing.
atmosphere you're creating with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like what I get from your website is just, it's art, and it's just so beautiful, and it will make you stand out from other people, because other people will just have generic business information about how much stuff costs. And when you're making it about the price, you're never going to connect with people on that deeper level. Before you even get anywhere to that, you're helping people fall in love with your interests. So I think you do that really, really well. I'm just going to go through your website a little bit and highlight some things as well that I think are really good, because the website curation is like the next bit of the course, the last bit. Your navigation at the top is really simple. So why have you kept it so minimal, which is one of the things that I recommend in module 3?
I think because especially for those like headings, it's just the ease, like user experience is the most important thing. So although I want it to feel like arty and personal and individual, like I just know that's important for it to be user friendly. But I also think that the majority of people, yes, the clients that I want to book do want something artful and interesting, but they definitely still lean towards minimalism and something that feels ever like still quite timeless. So I just knew, don't go too crazy with the initial first thing people are going to see.
I love that. The next thing that I was going to ask you was about supplier websites, because part of your job is curating like lists for your couples to review, isn't it? So if they say, these are the style of flowers that we want, it's your job to then go and have a look at like 100 florists and give your clients 5 to think about. So when you're looking on all these websites, what are the things that straight away you're like, no, ick, goodbye, like we're never booking you, see you later?
Oh, I hate to say it, and I don't know if I think this is more just like a personal thing, but I really just I can't bear a website that feels like it's like your classic beige wedding website. And that's just personal to me. I just think it's your opportunity to put your personality, because people are going to book you for you.
By beige as well, you're not talking about the colour scheme, you're talking about lack of
No,
focus,
like
right?
just yeah, it just feels like it's just not like a branding web, like a agency has kind of, you've got a template and put it onto. And not that it's horrible to look at. I think it's gorgeous to look at aesthetically, but it just, to me, just screams like there's no there's not as much imagination and personality that's gone into it. And that's what I want. I want like to build a team that is full of personality and like creative, and feels like, yeah, there's just, they've imagined something with their own mind. It's come from their mind.
Can you give us any examples of like good practice?
I really like it when there's imagery, especially for photographers, when there's imagery that is, again, just like, wow, that's, why have you put that on your website? Like, I love that is, you've made a bold choice, really bold choice. Like, I don't want to see, and then I'm interested. I'm like, why is that on the, like, who are they? That's so cool. I just feel like, be bold with this, with decisions. It honestly, it will make you stand out for
I love
sure.
that because you're basically saying everything that I was saying last week and then before you came on the call. So I'm like, yeah, this is brilliant. I don't want people to know when choosing between two images, I'll go for the one where they get to decide what that image means to them. It's not a really obvious choice. They look at it and it makes them feel something and they get to figure out what that means to them. And yeah, I completely agree with that. Also, another thing that I'm going to say that you do really, really well is the lack of text on your website. We're photographers, we're not writers, but sometimes I go on photographers' websites when I'm doing mentoring and there's just pages and pages and pages of writing. And I just think you're distracting from the images, which is your craft. Like, focus on the curation of the images, wow everybody with the images. Don't feel like you've got to write loads and loads and loads. At this stage, which is just getting them to inquire, you want to keep everything as minimal as possible because the more they've got to read, they're getting bored of reading it as they go through. You want to really like make it as minimal as possible.
Yeah, totally. And like just little snippets here and there, just little bits of text that get to the point, or show who you are, is absolutely fine. Most of the time, as creatives, we care about kind of the look of something, really. And I just feel like that's the best. I just think we live in a world which is instantaneous, and we just want to hit quickly of, we could, yeah, you understand the gist of what I'm saying, but I
Yeah.
just feel like getting the point across quickly and succinctly is key.
The last thing about websites that I wanted to touch on just before we move on is these are blog posts, right? So that's really, really good for SEO. So everybody, when you go on to doing your galleries, your example galleries next week, I'm going to give you a couple of really little hacks. So the first thing is to present them as a blog post, which is really good for SEO. And another thing is you can send your couples a questionnaire of like 5 to 10 questions, asking things like, how important was the photography to you? How did you pick your venue? Like, what did you want your gallery to look like? Lots of questions that people might be asking Google or whatever. And what happens by accident is that you get loads of social proof off the back of it. So basically, when you do your sneak peeks, have a sneak peek blog post in mind that you could use to show off that gallery on your website. Put the sneak peeks onto your blog straight away, ask the couple some questions and answers, and there's loads of examples of this on my blog. We're all really busy, so putting that responsibility of doing the copywriting onto your couples, it's an efficient way of getting extra social proof onto the blog, but also depending on what they've said, it might make you go back and get different images to put into the blog, so it's going to be a more well-rounded blog post as well. The next question, I've already asked you what instantly gives you the ick when you're coming to websites, but is there anything else that when you're looking at different suppliers, is there anything else that makes you think, no, you're not going to be right for this job? Like, past the design of the website, is there anything with their tone or their manner or just the way that they present themselves online that instantaneously makes you think, no?
I guess when I approach suppliers via email, my tone of voice of email is quite professional, but like super friendly. So I will put kisses at the ends of my emails and be like, "Hey, babe." I've never said babe in my life, but I'll definitely try and make it like quite casual. So I feel like if someone reads that well, and like ultimately, this is a fun job and this is a really fun industry. and your couple want it to be fun. And I just feel like it's our responsibility to also build a team. Well, for me anyway, to build a team that's going to provide fun and just make it a really, really enjoyable experience for everyone. So straight off the bat, if I've emailed and they come back with, haven't read my email like very well, and they've kind of come back with a very standard email, I am not personalized, I will, that's a bit of a red flag for me.
Normal.
Yeah, or just like it just super, super generic. Like they've not had the, and I understand everyone's busy, but like even just like a little hee hee at the end or something, I love, because it immediately makes me think like, yeah, okay, that you're like game. And also the communication is so, so important, like how we communicate. And like I'll be working with photographers so closely throughout the whole process and ensuring that we're like
We
so
speak to the
aligned.
couples more than anyone else, right? So we
Yeah.
need to be singing off the same hymn sheet as well. And that's actually one of the like the main reason why I wanted to get you on, is that you are so fun. The people in the group, you're all quite fun and like down to earth and relaxed. And I really wanted to dispel this idea that to work in luxury weddings, you don't have to put yourself into this formal box. Like for some, like, yeah, if you're going to do a royal wedding, probably don't swear in front of anybody at the wedding and like wear a suit. But most couples, even though they've got money, it doesn't mean that they don't have a personality. It just means that they appreciate the design elements a bit more. Like, don't be afraid to use your personality still. And I
Oh,
like
I can't even tell you how much it helps. Like it really, really helps.
this one is quite a big one, but you've obviously been in business for not loads of time, but you've built like a really big brand very, very quickly. What do you think has been the biggest thing that's helped you to do that? Like the biggest things that you've intentionally done to get brand awareness, grow your brand, get those clients in?
I think there's two things, is being really, really bold with my decisions. So bold with branding, bold with not really caring if it goes wrong. Like just having to just say like just saying yes basically, and failing. I mean, I've not, it's not been perfect, but you have to take the emotion out of that and then just be like, okay, well that's, I now know what to do. But also like building the relationships, like Faye, you have guided me through so much of this as well. And like I've met you, I've met so many people through you, and built.
Everyone's being really nice to me today. Like I'm used to people just taking the piss out of me all the time. It's really nice.
I owe a lot to you, because you have pushed me into like meeting new people, and you've been like, hey, I trust you in this. Like, here we go. Here's what I want to do. I trust you to build on that. And then when you're starting out, you just need people to trust you and to give you the opportunities, and that's what you've done. And that's what other people have done as well. There's other photographers who I feel have done the exact same, and it's, well, not the exact same, but you're amazing and the best, but have definitely like just given the opportunities. But it's relationships, isn't it? Everything is.
Relationships for sure.
Everything is relationships.
Yeah, relationships are without a doubt the one thing that have really like catapulted me like in my career. And the one bit of advice that I'd give you is when you are approaching suppliers, like make sure that you put their work in the mood board. So say you want to do a style shoot and you're approaching different people, be really bold, go for the suppliers that you really want, because if you're not excited about working with the florist that you've picked, they'll know. We can feel it as creatives when someone's being falsely into us or whatever, or love bombing us when we know that they've never liked a single post that we've done in our life. When you're approaching suppliers, put their work all over the mood board and be like, it has to be you. Really put the effort into that initial mood board, because they will really appreciate that. And they're so much more likely to say yes to working with you if they can see that it's their work that you love and not just a generic wedding dress or a generic style of floristry, for example. Okay, so what is the best business advice that you've ever been given? That's a hard.
I think it probably goes back to build relationships, not just transactions. It's just I've taken, that's actually come from previous lines of work, is just that concept of people want people, and that is the absolute like foundation of my business, is that behind it is like someone who is going to be your friend and build a relationship with everyone I can. So that's what I take into every single meeting, and that's now got me everywhere, and that got me, where it got me in my last job. Trusting your own personality and bringing that to the table, I just think there's nothing like it. You can do as many business moves as you like, but if you're not going to be like friendly at the other end, then there's no point. I don't
Can we
think you're.
just can we just touch on this as well? Because this has come up a lot over the past 2 weeks, that people are worried about being too much, or, like their personality is not aligning. You're not going to get on with everybody, and like there's going to be accidental conflict, and there's going to be mismatches in personality, and you're not for everybody, and not everybody's for you, and that's absolutely fine. But one thing that Verity's just touched upon is just be a nice person, and then even if you don't like align with someone, it's not the end of the world, but there's no need to be a dick. Do you know what I mean? Like, just be nice.
And I've messaged Faye multiple times being like, oh my God, I need to break up with this client. How do I do this? We're not on the same page. And I've lost some serious like money. Not I haven't lost it, but I've lost out on jobs that would pay me a lot of money. Um, hell. And oh my God. But just knowing that it wasn't right, and the relationship was not right. And I just think you have to make that has to be there. So yeah, building really good relationships and making the job fun is 100% the best advice in all walks of life, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Be nice, and if it doesn't work out, handle things graciously. Like, think about the consequences of how you are with people, because you're not going to be for everybody, and that's fine. And when it does come to like client relationships and you're breaking up with them, there's a lot to be said for being really true to who you are and not just doing weddings for the money, because then just the dread that you get, you only have to do a few of those weddings to get brave and think, oh, no, I'm going to be strong next time and say no. Just have the confidence to listen to those red flags and move away from those bookings before they actually get booked in. On this theme of alignment, what sort of advice have you got for people that know where they want to be, but they don't know how to get there? It might be that their portfolio doesn't match up with the work that they've got in their head. Their skills don't match up with the work that they want to be editing. Anything really. How do they get from where they are now to a portfolio that they're obsessed with, clients that they're obsessed with, calendar that they're obsessed with, etc., etc.?
Number one, be bold. Be bolder than you could even imagine. So if it feels uncomfortable, then you must do it. If it feels comfortable, ignore it. If it's uncomfortable, you have to do it. And that doesn't mean going with clients that make you feel uncomfortable. That just means like if it's scary, it's definitely the right thing to do in that moment, because you will not see the progress otherwise. And the other thing I would suggest is like really having a think on what you bring to the table. So just if you're feeling stagnant, or it's feeling like you're not getting to where you need to be, perhaps it's time to have a little change up of things. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like a complete rebranding, but just think, what is it that you bring as just you, because there is no one else that can do what you can do. So what is that thing? And take that with you into every decision you make. And even if it feels like, oh, but that's not very like wedding-y, or it doesn't feel like that's aligning with how a wedding photographer should act or be or say or anything, just give it a go and see what comes out of it. Because I honestly, truly believe that clients want really, really, really authentic things. And I have now built a really cool client base just from being truly myself. Whereas I think in the beginning I was trying to be a wedding planner.
And you're trying to do what you think people want, and it's this age-old thing. Like, I can look at someone's portfolio and I can see within seconds this is not from their heart. They're just doing what they think a good wedding photographer is doing, and you can read it straight away. And that's why people aren't standing out, because they're just following this like half-cut formula on what a wedding photographer is supposed to act like and what a wedding photographer is supposed to post. In terms of, so let's say you've just started out, right, and you have got an idea of the aesthetic that you want and the work that you've completed Pinterest, you've got the vision board, you know everything that you want. What are those steps to getting your real weddings to reflect the vision board?
So I mean, I think most obvious decision would be to do a shoot with like-minded suppliers, but it would be really, really focusing on like I would suggest focus on a small snippet of that Pinterest board and nail it. So rather than trying to do this like massive shoot that's gonna blow people's mind with how big and there's so much in it, I feel like take a portion of your mood board, find the suppliers that you're dreaming of, get them on board, but create something super, super small but impactful. And then you make that so detailed and wonderful, and you practice everything with that just small section that builds.
I was just about to say as well, on the concept of outdoor, you don't need to get a venue. Like, you're probably going to have to put some money into a shoot. Like a florist isn't going to spend £1,000 on flowers when she's never worked with you before and she doesn't know the quality of the images that she's going to get. But if you said to a florist, I've got a £500 budget to give to you for flowers to create something in this field, you don't need a venue. You can just be really creative for the day. It's wholesome. Get a friend to model. It doesn't, because you don't even need to get them to look at the camera. You can do loads of stuff with hands. Like, just create something for the sake of it in
Mhm.
an like predictable environment, and do consider, instead of like spending £850 on a workshop, consider spending that money with a florist that you really love or a stylist that you really love, and giving them budget to create something that's just for you. And that's kind of what I was going to say earlier when Rose was talking about doing my workshops and shoots. Obviously, I'm a workshop host. I've got a lot of time for workshops. As soon as you go, you've got 20 other people that have got the same content, and it just comes down to that thing of you've lost the lot. Like workshops when I first started, and I still do really small groups. I do like 4 or 5 people max, but workshops now there's like 20 people. It's like you don't have the same return on investment for your money. So it would be better to go and spend that money with an individual supplier, and then it's just you that's got the content. Like Paris, the one that I've just done, it cost me just over 2 grand, which is a lot of money. But I'm the only photographer that's got that content. I can edit it in my own time. I can submit it to blogs in my own time. I'm not worrying that I've got to rush back and like crash on the A1 because I've got to get the content out before anyone else.
I was just going to say also like invest in your details and your setups rather than your bridal or your portraits as well. I don't mean instead of, I just mean as well because that's what people are saving. So that's what's going on people's mood boards. So when I have my couples come to me with their mood boards, the majority of stuff is their table setups, their drinks receptions, their all of those things.
Trying to think outside the box.
Yeah, I cannot express enough how important it is as a planner to see a portfolio that is so varied and has lots of different things. I will immediately switch off if it's just loads of portraits. I know that sounds mean. I don't want to sound mean, but
No,
I
it
I,
doesn't sound
I
mean.
find it helpful
You know
just to
what though?
get
Even
those
if people
up.
think, but I love portraits, then this is good because it'll make them defend like what they really care about. And if you're sat here thinking, but I want to share couples photos, then you should because that's what you like, and you're going to get couples where that really, you know what I mean? Nothing that I'm saying is this is the way that it is and that's the way you should do it. It's just ideas, and it'll either make you agree with it or it won't, and then you can decide what's right for you and your business because ultimately that's the good thing
Yeah.
about
And
doing
it's
it,
all
right?
about authenticity and making sure that it's exactly feels right for you. Always what feels right for you, for sure.
100%. So some of my favorite days, just off the back of that, me saying, do consider investing your money in other suppliers, which they'll really appreciate, but it could also get you like a gorgeous little family. Like my workshop family now, like my day ones, like we have so much fun together, don't we? And it's like when you have these days, like the shoot that we did at the vicarage with that table that's everywhere now, all over Pinterest. That was such a fucking shit show of a day. Like the DPD driver didn't turn up until we only had the venue till 3:30. The DPD driver turned up at 3:24. Like, luckily, it's my friend Chelsea, so she let us stay. But when he came, I think it was called like Archive, which is hilarious because I watched Die Hard at Christmas and it made me think back to that day. But he came through and we were all screaming because the fabric only arrived literally 5 minutes before the shoot was supposed to finish. And then we had this like sheet cake that was like 10 foot long, but it started pissing it down. So we're all stood there with these parasols, like protecting the sheet cake at all costs. And people will look at that image and think, God, that's such a beautiful, serene image. When the reality was, we were having like so many things go wrong. But I don't know whether it was the trauma bonding of all the things that went wrong on that shoot, but like just the community and the friendships that you make from doing these shoots. Like being self-employed can be so lonely, but being idiots in the rain with the DPD driver turning up like 5 minutes before the shoot, like those are memories that like they're some of my fondest core memories. Like I don't know about you too, but I loved that day so much. And I
Yeah, and it was we put like we were all so busy to the point we were
yeah,
like, I don't even know if I can do this. And we were just all of us went, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what we're going to create. But there was like the energy was like palpable, and we were like, let's just create on
we
the
were dead
day.
on our feet, weren't we? We were all shattered, like we were knackered, but it was good. And like that's the one thing I always carve out time for creating things. Like no matter how busy I am, I always make time for shoots. And now because I've done so many shoots, it's a lot easier for suppliers to say yes, even if like the one that I've just mentioned a few minutes ago, I want to do it in a few weeks and all my friends are like, Faye, no, like it's so busy, like we've got no time. And I'm like, we will make time, it will be great. And it will be great. But even when you're really busy, you should always have play. And that's something that Mia spoke about last week. So with these shoots that you're going to hopefully organise for yourself, not only are you going to get banging content that no one else has got because it's come from your heart and you've invested in it, but you're also going to get these friendships like off the back of it, which are going to shape like your self-employed career. That makes sense. Like Susie, who's I couldn't do what I do now without my friends. Like they just make my life so much nicer. And that's what started off as networking and getting content has now blossomed into like a really wholesome part of what I do. And it does come back to this idea of alignment. Like, do you want to just bring home the bacon and like do these things and get this content and get these views, or do you want to have fun doing it? Because for me, like these shoots are such an integral part, not for the content, but for all the other bits. If you enjoy this and you feel like you would love to be a part of Align, I would love to hear from you. I'll pop the links below on how you can find out more when the next cohort launches. It will be coming soon. One last chance to make a massive difference to your business before wedding season fully begins. So just a reminder, the aim of this course is that it is as flexible as possible to work around you, especially as we go into spring and weddings are starting. It's really important to me that people have got time to work on their business around all their other responsibilities. All of the tasks within the workbooks, I'm going to put a little sneak peek up now. They're all very pragmatic, broken down into short, actionable chunks. You've also got contents at the start of each module so you can see the topics. If you have got limited time, you can prioritise which ones to do first before moving on to the other ones. Thank you so much for being here. See you soon.